Since the early days of animation, Disney has brought us princesses. So many princesses.
It looks just like him. It even has his eyes.
To the point where they've become a staple of childhood and popular culture. They're portrayed as ladies, as damsels, and most importantly, as heroes.
Get back! That's my mother!
Yes, they're all good, but when it comes down to it, who deserves the honor of being the most righteous of all the Disney princesses? That is what we're going to iron out today. I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is Disney Princesses Most Good to Least Good.
Now, make a wish and take a bite.
Before we start, there are a few rules that come into play when it comes to spotting a Disney princess. So let's flesh out the official Disney criteria, and full disclosure, we don't make the rules. These come from the big mouse upstairs. Number 1, they have to have a primary role in an official Disney movie that isn't a sequel. Number 2, they have to be human. Number 3, they must be royalty or the equivalent of it either by birth or by marriage. Or they must perform a great act of heroism. Number 4, and this is kind of an odd one, the character's film must be a box office success and have a cultural impact. Number 5, the feature must be completely animated, since that's the medium that Disney started out as. And finally, they can't be from bought properties such as Fox Animation, Star Wars, or the MCU. Sorry, Princess Leia. With all that said, we are gonna throw in a few characters who almost meet the criteria for official Disney princesses, just to shake things up and keep you guessing. Now finally, keep in mind that Disney princesses all have good in their hearts. But for this list, we'll be starting with the most good and working our way down to least good. And the medal for most good princess is going to go to Mulan.
I've got a name. And it's a boy's name, too.
There are some who would argue that because she isn't royalty, she doesn't deserve to be on the list. However, Disney has bestowed her with the official princess title because of the scale of her heroism in saving China.
What you have done for China.
And despite ranking her as the most good princess, ironically, she's also the princess with the biggest body count. I mean, that avalanche she pulled off would have earned her a tactical nuke if it were in Call of Duty. But this is war that we're talking about.
Prepare to fight. If we die with honor.
She puts her life in danger to save her father and help honor her family. She faces the leader of the Hun army a couple of times, saving Shane and the Emperor.
You the man! Well, sort of.
She isn't exactly the most graceful, but she does believe in fighting for her own identity, rather than having it chosen for her. She gives the entire troop she joins the will to keep fighting, showing that determination can make all the difference. Even when she was caught for pretending to be a man, she gracefully accepted her fate at the hands of the captain she saved.
A life for a life. My debt is repaid.
And of course, you have to admire how she went to warn them when she saw that some of the Huns survived, even calling out Shane for being unwilling to hear out a woman.
You said you'd trust Ping. Why is Mulan any different?
Though the second film was far less popular, she still proves herself as caring for the young princesses she's escorting, encouraging them to find their happiness.
We want to be like you, Mulan. Yeah, yeah.
When she thinks that Shane is dead, she grants them freedom by lying about their passing and takes the role of marrying the prince herself.
I would be honored to wed a prince of Qigong.
Luckily, the wedding was stopped, but it was still a large sacrifice on her part. Mulan earns the top spot because, despite her faults, she's a character of true integrity and bravery. She's selfless and does everything she can to protect her family and those around her.
He's wounded! Get help!
And one could argue that the scale of her heroism is the greatest of all the Disney princesses.
You have saved us all.
The silver medal of good goes to Belle. Educated, passionate, and an outcast simply because she loves to read. She sacrifices herself to save her father from growing sick in a cell, befriends the Beast despite the fact that he kidnaps her, and becomes close with the enchanted staff of the castle.
We must make her feel welcome here. Right this way, mademoiselle.
Even when refusing to be in the Beast's company at first, she doesn't lower herself to calling him names and even says no thank you when refusing to dine with him.
No, thank you.
You can't stay in there forever!
She stands up to Gaston and tries to fight for her father's freedom and the beast's right to live.
I know he looks vicious, but he's really kind and gentle.
This is all after the whole kidnapping ordeal, which really shows how forgiving she is. Too bad it's France, and her happy ending was probably cut short by a riot or violent uprising. It can take a lot of courage to be yourself. And although Belle felt out of place in their village, she never took out her anger on the people that mocked her.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
She even showed patience for Gaston when he barged into her home, demanding to marry her.
I really don't know what to say.
Say you'll marry me.
Sure, she tricked him into falling face first into the mud, but he definitely deserved it. Belle is very selfless in her attempts to help others and forgiving those who don't treat her well. And sure, she didn't save China from the Huns, but she's still very brave and has strong convictions. Next is Tiana. Raised by her mother and father to work hard for what she wanted, she strives to achieve her dreams and refuses to just be handed anything.
Rough night for tips, but every little penny counts.
She makes an effort in everything she does, from getting to know her customers' usual requests to helping kids clean up after eating. She does snap at Ray when he tries to comfort her, but being a realist, she likely did believe that she was helping him in the long run.
Open your eyes now, before you get hurt.
She sees that love helps a person be stronger and resists Dr. smashing the pendant.
How am I ever gonna pay back my debt?
Through her journey, she does get too distracted with her dreams to be able to enjoy anything else, but really, that's still respectable.
No one's ever done anything like this for me.
Her story shows that having a dream and working hard for it is a noble thing. And in many ways, she can probably be viewed as one of the best role models on the list because that message is so important and applicable to real life.
And hang up on the ceiling, a big old crystal chandelier.
Next, we have Moana. Though she insists she isn't a princess, we assure you that she is.
First, I'm not a princess. I'm the daughter of the chief.
She's stubborn and argumentative, fighting to get her way with her father and Maui.
This is my canoe, and you will journey to different...
She wants to do her best for her family and her people, taking to learning all she can from Maui to survive on the ocean. She admits to her mistakes when she stubbornly fights Taka before being ready, but eventually is rewarded for her effort. Though she wanted to give up, she saw the importance of her actions and recognized how far she came on her journey.
I will sail across the sea and restore the hearts of Te Fiti.
In the end, she saved her people by seeing Taka as what it really was and showed kindness in the face of danger and destruction. Despite any mistakes she makes, Moana truly puts herself in some serious danger throughout the film in order to protect her people. Heck, she even deals with an absolutely huge lava monster up close, which really shows how determined and fearless she is. Next is Kida from Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
My name is Kiragagash.
Not an official Disney princess, but a fan favorite nonetheless. Mysterious, fierce, and curious, she befriends Milo in order to help her people. She adores her father, and her first concern is preserving the culture and ways of life of her people before the city sank below the surface.
The kings of our past would weep if they could see how far we have fallen.
She steps forward to help, almost sacrificing herself, and eventually takes her place as queen.
She has been chosen, like her mother before her.
Honestly, a really awesome princess, and it's odd that she isn't considered an official one. She's someone who's willing to fight for what is important, and she ranks high on the list because of it. Next, we have Rapunzel. Kidnapped by Mother Gothel, she grew up to be considerate and sweet. She spends her days learning everything she can, from studying the stars to painting in every style. She gives Eugene the crown back in a display of trust and makes sure everyone around her is happy and thriving, pulling them all in to dance and letting the young girls braid her hair. She willingly offers to give up her freedom to save Eugene's life and tries to save him after Gothel falls to her death.
Look at me. Look at me, I'm right here. Don't go, stay with me, Eugene.
She does attack the tavern patrons at first to defend Eugene, manipulates Max to help, and takes down an entire drain system, but that's hardly the most wicked series of actions. Next up is Snow White. She's a young girl who doesn't let life get her down. Though her stepmother is cruel and makes her dress in rags and clean all day, she still takes time to sing with the birds and show kindness towards all the other animals she comes into contact with.
Everything's going to be all right.
She's quick to fall for a prince she doesn't know, but that can be chalked up to her naive nature. She holds no resentment towards the hunter when he almost murders her, and when she finds the dwarves' cottage, she cleans and cooks to try and persuade them to let her stay.
Pudding and gooseberry pie?
Gooseberry pie! Hooray! She's saved!
Initially believing that children live there with no mother.
Maybe they have no mother. Then they're orphans.
Even when she's in fear for her life, she apologizes for scaring the animals, stating that she's ashamed of her behavior.
I'm so ashamed of the fuss I've made.
She isn't the most brave or heroic princess, but Snow White is totally pure, caring, well-meaning, and an all-around great human. But maybe don't take an apple from this person creeping in your window, dummy. Next is Pocahontas.
My name is Pocahontas.
Tricky and mischievous, she lies to those around her to sneak around with John Smith, which, given the historical time period, probably not the best idea. But she's someone who's both willing to learn and also offer wisdom of her own. She chooses not to be with Kokum not because she hated him, but because she felt their personalities were too different.
Father, I think my dream is pointing me down another path.
With him being far too strict for her liking. She grieves the death of her friend, but knows that revenge isn't the answer, putting her own life at stake to make the message clear.
Look around you. This is where the path of hatred has brought us.
This makes her a selfless and caring person, and she put herself at risk defending John at the end of the film as well.
If you kill him, you'll have to kill me too.
Pocahontas often seems to be one of the more forgotten Disney princesses, but she is definitely brave and a great hero in her own right. Moving on to Anna. Younger sister to Elsa, she's bashful, clumsy, and awkward,
I've been up for hours.
making her an incredibly relatable character for a Disney princess. That said, she falls in love out of desperation for human affection and tends to act without thinking things through.
Well, we haven't worked out all the details ourselves. We'll need a few days to plan the ceremony.
But in her defense, none of this is really a jab at her morality. She's just a little too naive. She causes damage, destroying a cake in Kristoff's sled, but she knows the importance of family and friends.
She's my sister. She would never hurt me.
And she ultimately gets Kristoff a new sled in the end. She defends her sister and goes after her, trying to help her unfreeze Arendelle.
I know we can figure this out together.
And she even takes the blow from Hans to save Elsa rather than reach Kristoff to unfreeze herself, which shows true selflessness and that she's definitely capable of heroism when push comes to shove. Next is Jasmine. Full of surprises, she's a strong-willed girl who wants to be free to explore all life has to offer, despite the fact that she's never truly got to experience the world outside of the luxurious palace she's been confined to.
I've never even been outside the palace walls.
She's not afraid to sneak around and is willing to be a bit manipulative, but that's kind of part of being a teenager. The truth is, as much as she is a favorite Disney princess, she isn't exactly given all too many opportunities to showcase bravery as frequently as other princesses.
When I am queen, I will have the power to get rid of you.
That said, she is someone who has integrity and who believes in true love. She loves Aladdin despite their status gap and shows a soft spot for children going hungry in the street, nearly losing a hand to try and help them.
Do you know what the penalty is for stealing?
And she does have the occasional heroic moment. We're throwing in Wreck-It Ralph's Vanellope.
I'm a racer with the greatest superpower ever.
No, not an official Disney princess, but she met all the official princesses and does come close.
The rightful ruler of Sugar Rush, Princess Vanellope.
She doesn't realize she's royalty to begin with, only wanting to prove herself as a racer.
I'm in the race!
She's quick to insult others, but since she's mistreated by the other residents of Sugar Rush most of the time, we can understand her views.
You will never be a racer because you're a glitch.
She becomes close to Ralph, inviting him to stay when he helps her find her happy ending.
But you could just stay here and live in the castle.
When she's unable to leave the game and sees Ralph try and sacrifice himself, she jumps in to help. She's weird and crude, likable, immature, and funny.
Bundle myself up like a little homeless lady.
She has her heroic moments, and she's actually pretty human for a digital video game character. Not perfect, but who is? Now we have Elsa.
Queen Elsa of Arendelle.
But why is this princess turned queen so low on our list? Well, she lets her emotions get the best of her. She freezes the land, leading to shortages of food, firewood, and supplies, as well as damages her relationship with other cities of trade.
It's snowing! It's snowing! The Queen has cursed this land!
She freezes Anna's heart, even if it is unintentional, and creates a being to chase them away from her ice palace, which leads them to fall off a cliff. She kinda turns her back on her sister, although she did so while she was going through some serious issues of her own, then takes off to go build an ice castle. She eventually controls her powers and learns to better the lives of her people, even warming up to Kristoff and Sven. But she did so much damage and was concerned with her fear and despair that it took way too long to reach that conclusion. All that said, we will give her a pass on a lot of this because she was dealing with some serious weight on her shoulders.
Olaf, hang on, little guy.
Following Elsa is Cinderella. Another young woman forced into servitude, she makes the best of life.
Then scrub the terrace, sweep the halls and the stairs, clean the chimneys.
She falls for the prince, not knowing his status, and in the sequels, she's shown to still be a sweet and giving person, even with her newfound status.
A princess never prepares her own meals.
She helps her stepsister Anastasia find love with the baker in the second film and forgives her for trying to trick the prince in the third. She doesn't hold resentment to her siblings, knowing the control that her stepmother had over them. Instead, she just wants a happy life with true love and encourages others to do the same.
You see, dreams do come true.
That said, we rank her lower because she just isn't all that heroic when compared to most of the newer princesses. Speaking of which, next we have Aurora.
Everything's so wonderful.
Cursed to a deathly fate as an infant, she is taken from her home to try and keep her safe. She becomes close with the fairies, raised to believe they're human, and is shown as playful and sweet with them. She allows them to surprise her on her birthday, and the only time we see her upset is when she's forced to move back into the castle and accept her status, believing that it will separate her from the man she fell for.
But you must never see that young man again.
Truth be told, she spends a big chunk of the movie asleep and doesn't really have any opportunity to display any heroic traits. Sorry, Sleeping Beauty. Next we have Ariel. A headstrong teen, she lies about her studying of humans and disregards her father's worry about her going to the surface.
You went up to the surface again, didn't you?
She saves Eric and falls for his upbeat nature, growing closer to him and saving him once again from Ursula when the Sea Witch tries to kill him.
Eric, look out!
After him!
Her efforts are rewarded with her father realizing how important Eric is to her and granting her the chance to a happy ending on land. Still, she could have been more considerate of his concerns, seeing as how her mother was killed by humans. His worrying is pretty understandable, and there's also the fact that she seems to have little regard for dragging those around her into danger, whether it be Sebastian or Flounder, as well as getting caught up in deals by Ursula that ultimately put her father in danger. All that said, she does showcase bravery later on in the film, and she also returns to being a mermaid long enough to save her daughter Melody in the sequel, helping to defeat Ursula's sister. She's fiercely protective of those close to her and only wants everyone to be free to express themselves, such as when she brought music back to the kingdom after finding out how her mother passed away.
When your mother died, the whole kingdom was heartbroken.
But when we stick specifically to the original film, Ariel is definitely one of the most spoiled princesses. She has everything handed to her and completely disregards the fact that her father is doing his best to protect her from harm.
Do you think I want to see my youngest daughter snared by some fish-eater's hook?
And although he may be overbearing, there is a lot of validity to his concerns. I mean, he's a single dad just trying to do his best. And you really have to be naive and unnecessarily rebellious to sign a contract with an actual sea witch, without reading it no less. And yes, she rescues Eric, but she also needs rescuing herself, and in the end she may have learned a lesson, but I don't know if she truly appreciates how much chaos and despair she caused to the people around her. In our second lowest spot, we have Merida. We mentioned in our Brave, Good to Evil that her actions are a bit selfish, to say the least, and led to a lot of chaos, which is why she's so low on this list as well. She's prideful and tends to be impulsive. Sure, her mother Eleanor is tough to get along with, but she is a product of her time, and her goal of using alliances to create a strong kingdom makes a lot of sense. Not to mention the fact that as independent as Merida is sort of marketed as a character, when you really analyze the film, you'll see that her mother actually showcases a lot of respectable leadership qualities, and Merida doesn't seem to have any respect for it. All in all, Merida is childish and careless. Oh, and there's a little something that we forgot. She's the reason why her mother got turned into a bear. Eventually, she begins to see the error in her ways, after her mom is turned into a bear, and the two are forced to learn how to communicate without talking.
Where did you get this water? It has worms.
We do see that Merida loves her family, showing her closeness with her parents and brothers, and is willing to take up a weapon to keep them safe. She does eventually mature in the end, but it can be argued that Merida is still one of the least mature princesses on the list.
This is all my fault. I did this to you.
But who is the Disney princess of the least moral character? Well, we're gonna go with Megara, or Meg as her friends call her.
Megara. My friends call me Meg, at least they would if I had any friends.
Alright, she isn't technically an official Disney princess, but she is another fan favorite should-be official Disney princess. In fact, it seems like she doesn't qualify based on a very weak technicality. And since she married the man who is the son of Zeus, we say she counts as being married into royalty. Jaded from a previous heartbreak, she's sassy and witty.
I'm a damsel. I'm in distress. I can handle this.
She's reluctant to admit her feelings for Hercules, but even in the beginning, she prays for him not to be hurt by Hades or his traps.
Get out of there, you big lug, while you still can.
She's forced to work for Hades after selling her soul. This definitely dips her quite a bit in the morality ranking, given the fact that she spends the first half of the movie leading Hercules on. All for Hades, no less.
Couldn't have done it without you, sugar, sweetheart, baby.
It's definitely a huge betrayal, and selfish without a doubt. That said, in the end, she resists him in order to protect the man she loves. She even dies protecting Hercules when he loses his powers to free her. So even the worst Disney princess is still pretty good.
People always do crazy things when they're in love.
And that's our ranking. Do you agree? Who do you think is the most good Disney princess? Let us know, and be sure to binge our full Good to Evil playlist where we break down the morality of your favorite shows. But most importantly, stay wicked.